Hello. We're reading from Oppression and Social Intervention by Ira Goldenberg. Great book. We was reading the end where it talks about give you some solutions, some ways out, some ways to develop and create a society that's sane and civilized. I'm just going to read some of the final notes of the book. I was reading from the back of the book. And let's just get some final notes. A final note: the university and the problems of oppression and social intervention. Most of us lead what can only be termed uncomfortable, if not totally contradictory lives. For myself, the writing of this book, initially undertaken with a certain zest and flamboyance, soon became a relatively joyless and painful experience. The reasons are now as clear as they are undiminishing. In trying to provide others with an analysis of oppression and the problems of social intervention, one is forced, perhaps as never before, to use oneself and one's setting as a primary source of data for understanding the contradictions one is writing about. For myself, this has meant looking anew at the formal social institution, the university, of which I have been more or less a part for most of my working years. Again, self reflection. We all need it, and hardly anyone's doing it. The university, no differently from any other setting, entrusted the task of processing, i.e., socializing and legitimizing people into a society oriented to goods and power, consists of a complex series of interlocking, though by no means mutual, interests defined over time and invested with a degree of apparent, if not actual, validity. Its composition bespeaks a delicate balance of power groups, institutional relationships, and spheres of influence. Each segment may bring with it some slightly altered view of the world, but together they define the university as a community, give it uniqueness, shape its pattern of enduring values and traditions, and share in its perpetual or perpetuation. In short, when all is said and done, the university defines a way of life and sets the limits, both political and intellectual, of acceptable and unacceptable deviance. It does not, through its definition of scholarly research, its relationship to the broader society, its departmental decisions concerning tenure, the model of interpersonal relations it makes available to its staff, students, and faculty, or the manner in which it deals with the most political and supposedly non-political issues, academic freedom. This definition and the limits that invariably accompany it are not discernible or discernibly different or in opposition to those that prevail in the rest of society. The university is indeed the handmaiden of the social and political order from which it derives its resources. There is little doubt that the university, like its companion social institutions, has often succeeded in cloaking its motives with rhetoric that is as confusing as it is impressive. It can, for example, speak out, usually quite eloquently, about the need to change, rekindle our faith in the capacity of people to choose wisely for themselves within a climate of honest search, and recommit itself to dealing with the harsh moral and political realities of an imperfect society. This done, it can then conclude quite alone that it is mankind's institution dedicated to the search for truth and the value of intellectual inquiry. And then, almost as if believing that the power of such rhetoric brings with it an awesome imperial blessing, it continues its financial investments in blatantly racist and oppressive governments and oversees its own domestic sprawl over the communities in which it sits. Every myth and contradiction we have pointed to in our analysis of the American experience is mirrored, albeit in different form, within the university. The notion, for example, that the university provides a unique and supportive context for assumptions and questions is certainly open to doubt. It is no accident that much of the formative work of Darwin, Marx, Freud, and Einstein, the four theoreticians generally acknowledged to have had the greatest impact on our thinking about the human condition in the last 100 years, should have been conducted outside the walls of academia. Rather, it appears as if the university, far from encouraging creativity, is more at home in its role of refining, replicating, and processing existing modes of thought. Similarly, the rhetoric of academic freedom, pluralism, and independent scholarship can be viewed as convenient subterfuges for the perpetuation and private entrepreneurship that is in keeping with the underlying ethos of a society predicted in individual on individual competition and exploitation. Finally, there is the university's myth about the science and the apolitical nature of the heralded quest for truth. The university, now we might not have university. We definitely aren't going to have it in its old form. But you're free to learn now. I mean, I do these readings on my Patreon page. You're going to get readings that you're just not going to get in the university unless you go to the university and do it yourself. And thing is, do I pay $50,000, $30,000, $20,000, even $10,000 to go to a university when I can join a Patreon page for $3, $10, $25 a month and get the same knowledge? Especially if there's not going to be a job at the end, or if the job at the end is going to be me working. Now, there's some things you're always going to need certification for. But if it's going to just be me working, for instance, I have all the qualifications to be a public school teacher in New York City, which is the hardest place to be. But and I'm doing this. Do I need that to do this? Did I need all those qualifications, all that master's? What did I, why? And so the university, as it's constructed, is or was constructed, that he's talking about, thank goodness, is pretty much dead, and that's a good thing. Like most institutions in this society, they're just pretty much dead, and we have to figure out how we're going to go forward. I wasn't supposed to do any talking after just reading, but I can't help myself. Great book, Oppression and Social Intervention, Ira Goldenberg. Get it, get it, get it. And until next time, take care of your mind, take care of your body, and be safe.